Staff gives a presentation.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Common Council for Tuesday, June 14th. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a roll call.
Alderman Strelchuk.
Here.
Alderman Pouquet.
Here.
Alderman Meyer.
Here.
Alderman Worth.
Here.
Alderman Garrell.
Here.
Alderman Hawkins.
Here.
Alderman Nurbin.
Here.
Alderman Adams.
Here.
Mayor Avendroth.
Here. We have a quorum. First item is personal appearances and public comment. Citizens wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda may do so at this time. Is there anyone who wishes to address the council on any item not on our agenda? Seeing none, we move on to public officials' reports, and I'll go to the city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. As has been mentioned in the news over the last couple of weeks, our current Assistant City Administrator, Jesse Tice, was a finalist and is now the pending Village Administrator for the Village of Grafton. He was hired a week ago Saturday, and he will be starting his duties in Grafton as the new Village Administrator beginning on July 11th. Tonight marks his last meeting here before the Common Council. Jesse's been with the city for about 2.5 years, during which time he's taken the lead on filling a number of key positions within the city organization. He's drafted a number of policies which have come before this body and been approved. And he also served as acting city administrator or interim city administrator right after Lee Zimborski retired. He's been an invaluable member of the senior management team. His collegial approach has really been appreciated here amongst the senior staff. He's been a real asset to me as the city administrator since I came aboard a year ago in January. And we all know he'll do a great job in Grafton as their new village administrator. So tonight we wish Jesse well. We know he'll do a great job, and we thank him for all of his hard work on behalf of Mequon.
Moving on to our consent agenda, which includes Common Council minutes of May, Architectural Board minutes of April, Board of Appeal minutes of April and May, Bureau of Permits and Inspections reports for April, Economic Development Board minutes of May, Finance Personnel Committee minutes of April, Fire Department report for April, Mequon Festivals Committee minutes of April, Municipal Water Utility Commission minutes of October, Park Board minutes of March, Planning Commission minutes of April, Police and Fire Commission minutes of March and April, Public Safety Committee minutes of April, Public Welfare Committee minutes of April, Public Works Committee minutes of April, Sewer Utility District Commission minutes of April, Zoning Enforcement and Site Compliance Report through June of 2016. Also includes Resolution 3383, Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources NR 208 Compliance Maintenance Annual Report for 2015. Recommendation forthcoming from Public Works.
Oh, I'm sorry. We moved approval unanimously in Public Works.
That was approved by Public Works.
And
Resolution 3386, granting of an easement to We Energies at 10800 North Industrial Drive.
we also approved that.
That was approved by Public Works. Resolution 3388, authorizing the final plat for River Club Estates in connection with the development of 5 single-family lots located at the southeast corner of Freistadt and Oak Shore Roads. This was recommended by the Planning Commission last evening. And Resolution 3389, a resolution authorizing the Phase 1 final plat for Highlander Estates in connection with the development of 36 single-family lots located immediately south of Brighton Ridge Estates and Knightsbridge Estates between Wauwatosa and Swan Roads. This was also recommended by the Planning Commission last night.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Alderman Adams.
I just want to point out that the Resolution 3383, the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources NR 208 Compliance Maintenance Annual Report, we did get an A, and I think that speaks really well for the planning of this body and also of staff did a fabulous job. It's not easy to get A. If you look at that report, a lot's involved, so I think everyone should pat each other on the back.
Thank you, Alderman Adams. Alderman Strelchak.
I would like to comment that at Planning Commission last night, Resolution 3388, the final plat for River Club Estates, the one thing that was added on to that was an additional screening on Oak Shore. We did work with the developer and the residents on Oak Shore did wish to have a little bit more screening, so city staff is going to work with the developer to add screening, and then this was approved unanimously last night. I'm pleased to see that this contentious issue within the district is finally coming to a sunset, and the property is within compliance, and the neighbors are being respected within this resolution, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous, and the consent agenda is adopted. Moving on to ordinances. First one listed tonight is Ordinance 1468, an ordinance amending Chapter 58 of the Mequon zoning map by Lakeside Development for a 10-acre property located immediately south of 11104 Oriole Lane from R3 and C2 to R3 and C2 with a planned unit development to allow a 9-lot, single-family residential development. This was tabled by the Planning Commission in February, recommended by the Planning Commission in April. First reading was at the Common Council in April. Public hearing was at the Common Council in May, and a motion to approve this ordinance failed at the Common Council in May. We are under the impression that there is a request to reconsider the action of the May 10th meeting in which the Common Council denied Ordinance 1468.
Your Honor, I move that we reconsider the denial from May 10, 2016.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to reconsider Ordinance 1468. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Alderman Strelchak.
Aye.
Alderman Pouquet.
Aye.
Alderman Meyer.
Aye.
Alderman Worth.
Aye.
Alderman Garrell.
No.
Alderman Hawkins.
Aye.
Alderman Nurbin.
Aye.
Alderman Adams.
No.
6-2, and the ordinance is back before us.
Just, Mr. Mayor, just by way of explanation, just so everybody understands, by virtue of the motion that was just passed, effectively what that motion does is it just eliminates the vote on the motion. So as we sit here now, that same motion that was voted on is pending before this body. We just haven't voted. So at this point, you can either take a new vote, or if you want to do any of the otherwise authorized things that you can do to a existing motion, you can amend it, you can change it, table it, whatever you want. But just so everybody understands, we do have a motion that is pending as we speak. So,
Thank you. Staff, is there anything you'd like to present relative to this?
Thanks, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I think, given the material in the packet related to the reconsideration, I just think there's a couple things that staff would like to take an opportunity to provide as part of an overview. The application before you is a rezoning, which includes a planned unit development overlay request. That's required as part of our ordinances as it relates to a conservation subdivision. The PUD process affords the council an opportunity to place conditions on the rezoning request, and that can be based on site conditions or any specific interests that you may have. So that's certainly up to your discretion tonight in terms of consideration and discussion with amongst yourself as well as with the developer. The protest petition, if you recall from last month's meeting, still is in effect, so please be aware of the legal matter relating to that protest petition. Jack is with us tonight in the event that you'd like us to go through any of the specifics related to the zoning changes, the changes in the acreage or the land area between the proposed conservation subdivision and the Sarah Chudnow campus site. And then Kristen Lundeen, Public Works Director, City Engineer, is here to address any questions or further discussion about stormwater and drainage, as we suspect, based on last month's meeting, that may be the heart of some of the discussion tonight. If there is, oh, and we did receive some photos from Alderman Nurbin, and we have those available as part of the discussion if you'd like to go through those. And at this point, unless you want to hear a little bit more about the actual existing conditions as it relates to the land area or the zoning, I guess we'll just make sure we're here and available for further comments.
I'm going to call on Alderman Worth.
Well, I'm hoping that staff can go through a description of the drainage and drainage issues and, what's there now, as well as what the potential impact would be of this development.
Sure, I'll address that, and what I'm going to attempt to do is keep it big picture, and obviously if there are any questions there, and I'm happy to answer anything more specifically. Generally speaking, this area along Oriole Lane drains north and west to the river. However, it being a low-lying area and with very little fall or topography from this location ultimately to the river where the outlet for this area is, there are many conditions, both in small wet weather events and large wet weather events, where a good portion of land in this area remains wet for a considerable amount of time until that water can ultimately flow to the river. Part of that is due to river levels, that as the river rises and backs up adjacent to the river, it doesn't allow as much flow from this area to get through as quickly. There are also in this area a significant amount of wetlands, which are inherently wet a lot of the time, and even more so during wet weather events. There are conditions, and can be conditions, where the water on the west side rises up for a significant amount and may even push to the east until that water rises to the point that it has enough head pressure to push the water back to the other side. Hence some of the discussion about which direction the water flows in various events. These are all existing conditions. At this point, when the matter came before the Planning Commission, it did trigger several residents in the area to register drainage issues with the city. While we are still in the point of investigating those, we have not found an obstruction or anything under the city's drainage policy that would indicate that there's an issue that needs to be addressed by a public project. At this point, you have before you the discussion of development and understanding that whether the PUD is approved or not, there are inherent property rights that allow the land to be built upon. If there is development on just the existing lots as they are today, they would be subject to grading plans as a part of the individual building permits, and they would likely all have driveway culverts associated with maintaining the drainage in the area, and that would be the extent of stormwater controls that would be required. Depending on whether the development move forward as a land division or as a PUD would depend on how we would recommend that the stormwater be addressed. With a land division with individual driveways, while a calculation would need to be done, it would be unlikely that it would meet the threshold to require a stormwater management plan. However, the proposed PUD as shown does have an increase in impervious surface, not the least of which is the road that would be constructed to provide access to all of the lots, which would require a stormwater management plan and approval therein. I do want to clarify what the city's stormwater ordinance says with respect to stormwater management, which is that the rate at which stormwater leaves the site must be equal to or less than pre-development conditions, which in this case is empty lots. It does not require to improve any of the downstream conditions, but it requires the release rate to be equal to or less than what is there now.
And what your middle option where you said if it's done the way it's platted now, that's 4 lots with a land division, but not a PUD, and maybe this is a question for Jack, that could be 6 lots or 5 lots? I've heard different numbers.
Right now, there's 4 individual lots. They could redivide 2 of those lots to get 6 homes on them if they chose, but at this point it's 4, but there is a potential to meet our code with 6. One of the lots would require, well, either it was 4 or 6, one of the lots would require a fill permit to cross the wetland to get to because it doesn't have any access. But there is a potential under the current setup to have 6 lots.
And so if there were the 6 lots built, because he has effectively the right to do that, is the remediation of water problems is less than if this 9-lot development was approved? Is that right?
Correct. Typically, when land divisions come forward, especially of this size, they don't meet the threshold to require stormwater management plans.
Okay. And I don't know how you answer this question, and I know Alderman Nurbin had some photos, but which I think were taken the day after our last meeting, which showed a lot of the area had dried up already. Some of the property that was discussed is actually higher than this property, isn't it?
Yes.
So, I mean, this property is not going to cause that problem, in fact, just the opposite, right? Is there, what we have in our ordinance makes sense because a development shouldn't make a neighborhood worse. Based on compromises and what have you in the past, there have been developments where, in fact, the developers come forward with a heightened water utility plan that may actually assist the neighborhood. Is that right? And is that something we could add as an amendment to this ordinance if we so desired?
As Kim mentioned, if it moves forward as a PUD, as the council, you are welcome to put conditions on it, which could include requirements beyond what the ordinance requires for stormwater.
Okay. Those are my questions for staff.
Okay, we have a number of people who have registered to speak to this item, and so I'm going to call on them. I would just caution everybody that we have been through this before, so keep that in mind. Nicholas Meyer is opposed but does not wish to speak.
We're going to get a chance to see the pictures?
Yeah.
Okay.
We just want to let the people contribute their thoughts, and then we will have the discussion. Okay. Arlene Kurzer is opposed and does not wish to speak. Janet Ain opposes and does not wish to speak. Laura Leeper, sorry, can't read it, is opposed and does not wish to speak. Robert Decafer is opposed and does wish to speak.
Good evening. My name is Rob Kekafer. I'm a resident in Hidden Reserve. I spoke the last time in May about this. And I wanted to introduce myself again. I am an engineer. I have a master's degree in environmental engineering from the University of Wisconsin. I restored or helped U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Wisconsin DNR restore over 3,000 wetlands across the state of Wisconsin. I'm very familiar with wetlands, and that's a wetland. And you're putting houses right in the middle of wetlands. If you look at the plot plans list these areas as wetlands, especially the two to the north. So you're basically going to be putting this development in the middle of a wetland. We already have wetlands across that entire area. And I don't know, and I have not seen any hydrology studies that are going to tell us what's going to happen when you start disrupting this wetland. But I know right now, we've already got wetlands, and we've already got a sewer that's overloaded. And we've got water that flows to the north, and we've got 58 residents just down the road, and I'm one of them. And I don't want my basement flooded because the sewers are inadequate. So those are just a couple of I think, the things that we talked about a month ago. And I don't know why, I don't think anything's changed. Nobody's come back and said, well, we're going to put in a new sewer system. Nobody's come back and said, well, we've done a hydrology study and we know exactly what's going to happen to this water when this wetland is disrupted. The lot is a push to put 4 houses in, and the thought of putting 9 in is, I think, not appropriate, inappropriate. So that's my formal statement. Thank you very much for listening to me again.
Thank you, Mr. Kiekefer.
Your Honor, could you mention their addresses when you give their opinions, please?
1903 West Hidden Reserve Court. Okay. Sarah Fleet is opposed and wishes to speak. Sarah lives at 10905 North Oriole Lane.
Well, thank you for letting us speak again. I wonder, as I guarantee you, a lot of the people sitting behind me, is what we're doing here again. I think that we presented the case. The concerns for me are the traffic, the sewer, and of course the water. The traffic concerns me greatly as a parent of small children. I wonder why we're here again. This has clearly been a lesson in municipal government for me, at least, and I'm wondering where the land is coming from for the property requirement for the 10 units. I suppose we don't really care in the end, as long as the developer gets the number of acres that they need. But I guess I'm really disappointed in what we saw the last time to be able to push this forward again. And again, we oppose this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fleet. Nancy Kaufman is opposed and wishes to speak. And Nancy is at 1961 West Hidden Reserve.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I was not able to attend the previous meeting because I was out of town. I'm on the board of the Hidden Reserve Development. I have been a very proud member of the Mequon community for 13 years after moving back here from a short stint on the East Coast. I have been involved in development of natural areas and working with developers, both here and in Madison, Wisconsin, where we owned our first home. I, too, am very concerned about several things about the site. The wetlands issue is significant. Wetlands are just not grassy mush. There's actually a reason for them in that the plants absorb excess drainage water, and they also, through the stems of their roots, allow drainage into the subsoils faster, so it's not all runoff that goes into the Milwaukee River and through all of our properties. This will be disturbed by putting the development there and replacing it with impervious surfaces, which actually create a faster flow of runoff. I know there have been engineering studies. I didn't see any hydrology studies in the packet, and I think that's a key concept here that's perhaps been not attended to, as Bob mentioned, and we could learn a lot from that. We already have significant problems in our development during rain events, and we've been actually videoing some of those and things like that, so we may send you some photos, but they're significant, and we've had some flooding of homes, and it's just not adequate to handle what we have. The other issue is, of course, sewer adequacy. We've also had backups of the sewer system during major events, and we don't see any immediate plans to remedy any of that. We'll just be adding to the problem with the addition of this development. And lastly, I also want to mention that I very much appreciate all the staff work that goes into considering all of these plans and the very good work done by our civil servants who do a great job here in Mequon of following up on construction of these developments. I know, though, that plans are not what you end up with in implementation, and lots of things go haywire during that development process. And we simply are too short-staffed here, as are many municipalities these days, to have the level of staff to go out and really supervise these sites and the developers as they should. So there, who's going to keep track of the erosion and issues during construction? Who's going to assure that the grading's correct? Who's going to assure that the drainage systems, we've heard reference to some new drainage ideas or sewer, but we have no access to any of those documents before this meeting. It's just that improvements have been suggested by the developer evidently, but we have no way to look at those. So I'm very concerned about implementation and having enough adequate staff to follow up on problems that get created in every development as construction is underway and completed. I thank you for your time and the opportunity to participate in the civil process.
Thank you, Ms. Kaufman. Adam Girol is opposed and wishes to speak. Adam lives at 11067 North Oriole Lane.
I apologize if I'm going to be repeating some of the thoughts that you heard the last time. I was not able to be here last time. And in some ways, I'm also surprised to find myself here today with the issue being reconsidered. I'm unaware of anything that's changed over the last month. My house on that map, I'm actually in that northwest area that apparently the water flows through. My address is a little deceiving because I'm a couple of acres off Oriole Lane. There's actually a private driveway that runs to the north of the church that's there. The bottom portion of my property is a swale, and I can tell you that swale is wet as we speak. It's normally dry by this time of year, but apparently, as I've learned today, and I thank you for that, I appear to be part of the route that water carries to the northwest before it joins the river. A little bit further to the west of me is a private road, Crown Court Properties, and on the west side of the road, after every rain, the gutter that runs along the line becomes a torrential river already. So much so it almost looks like a white water rafting scene. And I can only imagine what would happen if more water became part of that. Many springs after the melt, the property immediately to my west, Mrs. Niebel, Helen Niebel, who I think she's about 90 years old, likely one of the first residents in that area, becomes underwater already, and my other neighbors refer to it jokingly as Lake Niebel. Those are already the conditions. Personally, my house tends to be the highest point. It's built on probably the highest point of the neighborhood. So in general, I haven't suffered as much from the water that other people do. I'm not sophisticated in the issues of hydrology or water handling. I can only speak from experience and what I know. I know that property very well. I have been back in there many times, and maybe I shouldn't say it in an open forum because now that I reflect on it, I don't know how legal it was, but I walk my dog back in there quite a bit. At least I used to, as my wife and I tried to explore a convenient path to take us from our homes to Sarachudno, where we're dearly hoping that my in-laws reside. That area, if we went back in there today, is wet. It is currently wet. I haven't been there in a few weeks, but I can say as we walk through, there may be areas where our shoes may not sink, but in general, it is wet, it is swampy. And that's not to say that somebody or a private owner couldn't build there. And I know that much of what we've heard today discusses what would happen with the surface water that's there right now, with replacing the surface soil with an impervious level like a road. But when you put in houses in property, we know that we're doing more than just disturbing the surface. We're putting in homes with sump pumps, and we're in essence pumping out large acreages, and that water has to go somewhere. I moved down here from the town of Cedarburg I think it was about 4 years ago, and I lived right by Lasada. And it was an area that was somewhat similar, a little drier than that land. But over time, what we were seeing with each successive house, the accumulated effect of all of the sump pumps. And as all of us fought water, the common enemy, and seemed to push it onto our neighbor's property, one by one, our septic systems all failed. They all failed, one after another, as we pushed the property out. There is a wetland area in my old neighborhood that's still preserved. Now, this area that you're talking about building, and our homes don't have septic systems. We don't have to worry about that, but that's a special use. The larger question, though, is the water is going to be there all the same. And either we're going to be confronted by soggier roads, or we're going to have to deal with where to push it and how to push it. I don't know of any significant need or emergency that compels a board in the exercise of its police powers or its duties to the community to approve a zoning change. I don't know why it's necessary. I don't know why this property, which has remained as it is, isn't adequate, and development simply can't occur elsewhere. I'm not one of the people that's concerned about traffic flow. I mean, traffic flow happens. That's what the roads are there for. That being said, anyone familiar with this property and familiar with the area, I submit, is extremely concerned about the water. This municipality has spent a great deal of money dealing with other significant water issues. And I think many of you may recall what used to happen north of Mequon Road in the neighborhoods east of Range Line, west of Oriole, and how some of those roads essentially became submerged. That situation has not been so significantly solved that the entire area's water handling capacity can deal with the significant stress. And as we're only talking about a small lot, I submit this as a wet lot, and it would be a significant stress. I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you, Mr. Garrell. Lisa Lamb is opposed and wishes to speak. Lisa lives at 10925 Oriole Lane.
I'm Lisa Lamb. I live at 10925 North Oriole Lane, and you've seen me here before, and I'm not sure why I'm here before. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight because, quite frankly, I'm kind of worn out from this whole issue being rehashed and tweaked and changed and manipulated to make it work. I'm assuming you all received my email about my concerns with Alderman Worth's potential conflict of interest in this matter and other real estate matters, and I will skip that for now if you choose. I would, however, like to touch base very briefly, I hope, on the number of false and contradictory statements that Lakeside Development has made, continues to make, and the ever-changing location of wetlands, buildable land, various versions of their development plans, and totally inaccurate theories as to the drainage patterns near my home. In my opinion, Lakeside Development has lost all credibility. I was looking at the packet, and some of the reasons, some of the rationales supporting this, the increased tax base, well, there are taxes that are being collected on those lots at this time, even though information was provided that indicated that was not the case. Regarding Lakeside Development's good reputation, I've heard that over and over and over, and I believed it myself until I decided to do a very quick search on the number of lawsuits at Lakeside Development where they have been sued and named as the defendant. That's not to mention another company that I found that's owned by Humbert and Mr. Zabchek, called Gateway Development LLC, which has also been sued numerous times. So this particular organization is not perfect. They don't do things necessarily right all the time. So I think we have to be careful not to buy in when they say they absolutely know what they're doing and they have 30 years of experience and all that. I'm not that optimistic. There are other things that were in there that, satisfy a market, need for single-family homes. Well, I don't know of all the people who came with their scripted testimony on behalf of Lakeside Development, I don't know of anyone who is ready to sign on the dotted line. Then there's, okay, what size are these homes? Well, I've heard all kinds of different, stats on that. Are these luxury homes? Are these smaller homes? I don't know. If they're luxury, all I can say is these homeowners will be very upset when they move into them and they hear the whirring of the Sarah Chudnow air conditioning running all night long, where you can't sit outside and you can't leave your windows open at night. School enrollment was cited as something that enhances this project. Well, these are retirement homes, so I'm not sure why that was mentioned. If Mequon is concerned about dropping enrollment, then maybe they should take another look at this agenda that seems to be taking place for more memory care facilities and retirement communities, because that does not promote school enrollment. Perhaps my favorite of all was that this would aid in water management of the area, which I find absurd. I live there, I know better. I know what happens when you start touching those wetlands. The water issues we have are because of the drainage that comes from the south. It has nothing to do with the east, and in fact, I was glad Kim mentioned it tonight. The culvert that's under the road near my house is flowing the wrong direction. So right now, once that is fixed, which according to Scott Humber would need to happen in order for this development to take place, we're going to have even more water that's rushing from the east to the west in addition to what comes from the south. I think it's the city's responsibility to address the existing drainage issues that we have right now. And nobody's talked about that. Nobody's talked about investing resources in that. The ditches are inadequate. There aren't enough culverts. There's something drastically wrong. So why are we talking about additional water flow? That's insane. I had one thing that I wanted to show, and then I'm going to take my seat. I can pass this around if you want, but this is something that Scott Humbert showed to me when I expressed my concern about the drainage patterns and where they go, because they have a completely different understanding as to how the drainage really flows. And this shows that the drainage would go right next to my house, flow over the top of my neighbor, through the backyard of the daycare center at the Methodist Church, and the gentleman who spoke before me, his yard would be more underwater than it is now, because Crown Road would be affected by this. This whole thing is just poorly thought out. The land is not suitable for building, and I don't know why this is coming up again. Thank you.
I have a question.
Thank you, Ms. Lamb.
I didn't receive any email on conflicts of interest from Alderman Worth. I looked around at the rest of the Common Council members. I didn't see anybody who saw it.
4:30 this afternoon.
Well, I didn't get a chance to see it.
Well, here, I'll summarize. Because my firm does a lot of work for real estate people, and because I do work for real estate people, both owners, developers, what have you, and our website says that, the suggestion was made that I should not be able to be an alderman or vote on real estate issues. There is no suggestion that I have any sort of relationship with the applicant. I don't. Or that I've done any work for Mr. Zabchek. I don't know that I've ever really met him before this process, but simply because I do real estate work. There's no conflict of interest, legal or otherwise. In fact, if anything, perhaps it's helpful in some instances where somebody knows something about the subject matter that's being discussed. You could, I mean, that's what it says, right? I think I fairly summarized.
Yeah, I understand the email came late this afternoon, so people haven't gotten it. Some people may have gotten it, some people haven't. We're going to move on to Jim Locatelli, who is opposed and wishes to speak. And Jim lives at 10925 North Oriole Lane.
Good evening. My name is Jim Locatelli. I live at 10925 North Oriole Lane. I appeared before you at the May 10th meeting. I appeared before the Planning Commission at the April 11th meeting. And, you know, I'm disappointed that we're taking more valuable time to discuss this issue. After 2 hours of debate at the May 10th Common Council meeting, We now understand the theatrics and the motivation behind Alderman Worth's last-minute move to change his vote after all of the Common Council members had voted from a yes to a no. And I think as a citizen, if you would have voted for the proposal on May 10th, fine. Let's be done with this. I mean, how much time can we debate the same issues? Of the 10 acres of a property to be developed, approximately 5.5 acres have been determined to be wetlands, and 9,116 square feet of the existing wetlands are to be mitigated according to the latest March 16th, 2016 site development plan that has been published to the citizens. According to Mequon's Director of Community Development, the proposed concept plan requires the portion of wetlands to be filled will require approval from the DNR. In addition, your Director of Community Development states, deviations to the wetland setback and the use of rain gardens will also require approval from the DNR. As of this morning, Kathleen Krametz from the DNR stated, when asked if the DNR has granted their approval, in quote, her email response, which I have right here, states, no, we have never received an application for this project. This directly contradicts the statements that Mr. Zabchek from Lakeside Development made at the May 10th public hearing. In addition, at that meeting, and I'm not going to read the whole paragraph that's in your meeting packet, you all have this information, but Director Lundin clarified the sewer capacity issue. And because of the existing challenges that the sewer has, she stated the necessity of a storage tank, a grinder pump, or lift station to be constructed on a proposed area to accommodate the sewer capacity issues. We have 10 acres. We have 9 homes. Can you imagine the marketing appeal that a storage tank to handle sewage, a grinder pump, or a lift station would have to prospective homebuyers? I think it's utterly ridiculous. You have people that are, according to Lakeside Development, going to spend $480 to $1.2 million to purchase their home. Half of them are going to have access to the sewer, and half of them are going to have be using a temporary storage facility. At the end of the public hearing portion of the meeting, rather than expand upon the advantages of the proposed development, Mr. Zabchek attempted to impugn my integrity in the May 10th portion, in the public hearing portion of the May 10th meeting. He was implying that I was not telling the truth, that I was making up stories regarding the information I have obtained directly from the DNR on May 10th, in which at that meeting I directly quoted the response that I received that day from the DNR. He also inferred that I was making up stories that the property we purchased that has 2 wetlands on it, that the existence of the wetlands was not disclosed to us prior to the purchase of the property. He subsequently went so far to contact my attorney in the litigation and was informed by my attorney that I was absolutely telling the truth. I have for you the property condition report with line and I have it here, but at line C11 is left unanswered and is blank. I don't understand, you know, he had attempted to attack my integrity and disregarded the feelings and the sentiment of the people who live on Oriole Lane and who have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in their property. You know, you are asking the residents to trust this developer to follow the correct process that the city lays out in developing this property. After through this whole process from the beginning of the year, after the numerous misstatements of fact, the twisting of fact, the false innuendos that have occurred over the past several months, there is no way that I have any confidence in Lakeside Development to follow the city's and the DNR directives to develop this property in a manner that will not create additional hardships to the residents of Oriole Lane and the surrounding area, and that will prevent the devaluation of our homes. I appreciate your time. I again ask you to vote down this ridiculous proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Locatelli. Jane and Quinn Martin from Hidden Reserve Circle are opposed but do not wish to speak. Joseph Ehrlich is opposed and wishes to speak. 2001 West Hidden Reserve Circle.
Good evening. I'm Joseph Ehrlich. I live on 2001 West Hidden Reserve Court in Mequon, Wisconsin for the last 10 years, and I'm here to oppose this project. You've had valid people here, very astute people and reasonable people tell you this project should be moot and void. You voted it last time, and why do you have to bring it up a second time? Besides, if you put all these heavy homes on this wetland, the water will rise, you know, and there will be natural flooding. So this project definitely should be rejected, you know. As far as I'm concerned, it'll cause flooding, it'll affect the environment. It's a natural aquifer and a natural wetland, which we need in the area. We have already plenty of flooding around in the area as it is, wetland. And I'm totally opposed to it, and I would appreciate it if you guys would agree with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ehrlich. We have Julie Carpenter is opposed. Julie, do you wish to speak? Julie lives on Hidden Reserve Court. Yes, she does.
My name is Julie Carpenter, 1904 West Hidden Reserve Court. Actually, our house is situated beneath a good sort of 10-foot gradation. It's quite a bit higher, and whenever it rains, we actually have a river, a swale that comes down from our house. And I know there are significant concerns about whether the sewers will be able to manage the large number of homes that they are proposing. And I'm very concerned. I'm concerned our sump pump actually runs most spring and summer. So I think you really have to decide and find out more information about the hydrology of the whole area. Everyone's spoken about that, and I think it's critical before you make a decision to put a large number of homes there that you understand the impact that it's going to have on all the other homes in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. And we have Mr. Tom Zabjak, 11845 Sand Hill Court, supports and wishes to speak.
Sand Hill Circle. Again, I'm speaking as a developer, president of Lakeside Development, not as a resident. But I just hope it's clear to everyone that our subdivision, proposed subdivision, and I think it's supported by engineering, it will not guarantee that will enhance the stormwater management of the area, but the alternative is not going to at all, and that is doing 6 lots. And I believe that Kim sent you the plat where we have the option of doing the 6 individual sites. And, you know, it's not that I want to be a philanthropist to say, hey, I want to help these people with their water. And there clearly is an issue with water there. But, you know, if we manage the storm water on this particular site, there is a propensity that it could help the water management on the existing sites. You know, I'm sorry, the neighbors. You know, a few other things, and I talked about this at the last, I think it was May 10th meeting, and, you know, there are so many things that we talk about that are unfound. You know, like Mr. Locatelli just spoke, and I respect the man, and yes, he actually accused me of fabricating, you know, that he didn't have this issue. Well, that's not true. What I said at the May 10th meeting was, I would really be surprised if a realtor would put an offer to purchase together. And I explained that I'm a licensed realtor. I don't practice real estate. But, I mean, you just don't do that type of thing. And then also on the offer, not the offer, the property condition report, there's also an item or a line on there that you have to put that down, whether there's a floodplain or a wetland. And I did talk to Mr. Locatelli's attorney, and Doug Rose. I know him. I've worked with him in the past. And there is a case, in fact, that he is suing a realtor for non-disclosure. And I think it's in sometime next month in July that it's going to go to court. And so I don't know what the situation is, whether he's going to win or lose, but obviously he has a claim. And I'm not discrediting him. I never said that, you know, this wasn't true, but I mean, that's a different issue. But, you know, I have a number of things here. Mr. Girl, or I'm sorry, Commissioner Girl, you said at the last meeting, you talked to the Army Corps of Engineers, and there's no record from the Army Corps of Engineers, and you talked to this lady, I forgot her name, Kathleen Kismera, is it?
No, it's Kathleen Kramitz, and I talked to her
Kramitz.
again today, by the way, and she's with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, and she's never spoken to you ever.
I never
She
spoke
hasn't
to her either,
spoken
but
to-
I have a letter right here from the Army Corps of Engineers, and I don't expect to get your vote. But I'll tell you, here's a letter, if you like to read it.
I read it.
It's addressed to me, and it's from the Army Corps of Engineers, and she's copied on it. Now, how can you explain that?
I will
Tell me
explain that to you.
that.
I will explain that
excuse
to
me.
you. I will
Wait,
explain,
let's-
let me explain it.
No, wait. You'll get
Explain
your chance to talk to the council. It's Mr. Zabjak's time to address the council.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
No, I mean, it's just, at the May 10th meeting, you said that. You said, I've known this woman for 16 years. She never heard of me. And she's copied on a letter. I mean, how absurd is that? Oh, well, you'll have your opportunity.
Mayor, can we stay on point here about the project, please?
I'm sorry?
Can we stay on point about the project, please?
Okay, I'm sorry. You know, it's just that, you know, sometimes it gets a little bit annoying when people are saying things that really are not founded. So, you know, there's people talking from Hidden Reserve. I don't know if the issue is there. I don't know how the water from this particular project is going to have any effect on Hidden Reserve. I mean, they're way up there, we're way down here. So, I don't know. What else can I say? The other thing I can say is, you know, we have a staff here that are very, very qualified people. And they're telling you that this project makes sense. And they also said, I want to make it clear, it's not going to mitigate the water problem, or I should rephrase that, They can't guarantee it's going to mitigate the water problem. But what our alternative is would actually potentially cause a greater problem. So, I just have to say, if you don't support this project, I think you're doing a disservice to the people on Oriole Lane. So make your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zabjak. Okay, take this matter back to the Common Council. What is your pleasure? Alderman Urban.
So perhaps staff could explain to the audience, once a project like this gets approved, hypothetically approved, what's the process for ensuring all the conditions we put upon it, that project are verified? We do have a process for that. Correct? We go out and inspect the stormwater management additions.
Yep, sorry, I was just looking for clarification on which conditions. So in the circumstance with respect to stormwater, at this point, obviously, there's just a concept plan. So there has been no stormwater management plan generated at this point. So as the design moves forward and the definition is made for the length and width of the road and other impervious surfaces, a stormwater management plan would be generated. That goes through approval at a staff level. We do that through a consultant who reviews and recommends approval to the city. We then review that, and if we approve, forward that on to MMSD for approval. They have a second look at it to make sure that in addition to meeting the city's ordinances, that it also meets Chapter 13, which we are also required to follow as being a satellite community for MMSD. And then ultimately, the stormwater management plan would be approved. Once approved, then for construction, the first thing that has to happen is they have to post a drainage escrow that is equal to 125% of the cost of the stormwater facilities. That has to be in place at the city until the stormwater management facilities are certified that they are compliant with the original design. That onus is on the developer, but it has to be signed and stamped by a professional engineer indicating that it has conformed to the original design. With respect to erosion control, there is a permit required. I can assume that they're going to meet the thresholds that would require that as well. They themselves are required to complete inspections weekly and within 24 hours of each stormwater event. As a part of the city's permit, we do the same and have inspection therein. If there are any erosion control issues during construction, we can obviously cite the party for that. They would be in charge not only of shoring up the erosion on their site, but taking care of any discharge of erosion downstream therein. As well as potential assessments of penalties if appropriate therein. And that permit must remain in place until the site is a minimum of 70% vegetated or at the point that erosion should no longer occur.
Okay, thank you. I think there's some confusion on lack of specificity in this because at this point it's a concept.
Correct.
And the developer is not going to go through the expense of tens of thousands of dollars to produce all these detailed plans until he even is allowed to proceed. So I think there's a little bit of confusion on that point in the general public. I guess I'd like to reiterate a point I made at the last meeting, that sewer capacity during normal dry day events is probably at 10% capacity, give or take. It's only an issue when we have rainy weather events, and that additional water flow comes from stormwater that's leaking into our sewer system through through manhole covers, leaky pipes, people's illegal sump pump connections in their basements, which I've been shopping for houses a lot lately. I've noticed one in about every basement I've been in. I should give you a list.
Yes, please.
So it is not the new sewer pipes that are all sealed PVC connections that are going to be the types of pipes that are found in a new project. This will effectively contribute nothing to the sewer capacity issues we have during rain weather events. And we are, by the way, fixing the sewer. This East Trunk Sewer Improvement Project, it's rolling now. We're going to borrow the money. We're going to do the improvements. It's going to take a couple years to get in the ground. So we are fixing the sewer. Should be good news for everyone. on the east side of Mequon.
Point of order. Your Honor, don't we need a new motion to approve the project or not? So the reconsideration is enough? Okay.
Made the motion from last time.
I think as well, if this gets divided up into 4 or 6 houses, single-family homes, which I think I have every indication that the developer is probably going to do if this doesn't get approved, there will be no stormwater management plan, there'll be no retention pond, and it will be worse off for the area. I guess if we could go to the photos I took. The night we voted on this was a very rainy evening after a very rainy day, and I drove back in the rain all the way back to Mequon that night. This is the next day. What I found is there are some areas here that were the wetland delineation flags were still up. Most of these are puddles that are less than 6 inches deep. And there's not really aquatic wetland plants growing in them. They're dry land plants that are growing up through puddles of water, much like happened on my lot. I have an area off to my east that frequently gets wet, and there's trees and other land plants growing up. There's no cattails, there's no wetland type plants there. This is largely what you'll find, at least from the street. I didn't hike the whole property because I didn't want to trespass upon it. So cycle through these. There's a cut made in here, dry as far as the eye can see. The ditch on the east side of the road that this property's on, dry, 24 hours after almost 24 hours of straight rain. There are problems to the west, but this land drains onto it. And I don't know if you can fast forward to those. The main drainage way to the west is largely overgrown and in state of poor repair. I think you have to keep on going. So this is the west side of Oriole Lane. There is standing water there. It drains across the street and picks up the main drainage way, which is on the maps. And it doesn't drain well because it's overgrown with scrub brush. It's just not maintained well. So if this project were to go in and the stormwater management plan is generated and you're not adding, if you have equal or lesser flow to when from what you have now, it is not going to add any volume to that flow if it's done right. And there's a certification process, which is quite detailed, that the city engineer just laid out. So I'm failing to see how this is going to actually make things worse. The conditions here are quite different than some of what was described. And usually I go out and do this sort of survey in preceding a vote that I think will draw some interest from the public. I did not have that opportunity because I was gone the whole week and a half preceding this. I literally drove back for the meeting, so curiosity got the better of me, and I went out and poked around myself, and I guess I was left with the opinion after looking at it again that I voted correctly the previous night, and hence why I'm here talking to you again tonight about it. But I think I've said enough. I think review those photos if you'd like, flip through them. There's not much there to talk about.
Alderman Adams.
I just want to comment on your talk about the wetlands. I have vernal ponds on my property, and they are made to dry up. They're in the nature preserve. They don't have cattails, and when an engineering firm goes through that understands the environment, if those were flag ponds, that's because there was some evidence of wetland plants, wetland trees. I've had a study done to my property, and vernal ponds they play a very important role in our. That's where the salamanders breed and things that. I'm just saying, in general, it might look pretty unimportant. It might dry up in a month, but they are important to the ecology. And Mequon is full of vernal ponds. It always has been. Anyway, that's not what I meant to say, but I just wanted to try to clarify what I saw there. When we talked about the stormwater ordinance, Kristen, you said it last month. I heard you say that it guarantees the flow of water is pre-settlement or so the flow is not going to be more, but it doesn't regulate the quantity of water. And when we're looking for 4 to 6 houses versus 9 homes, you will, I think common sense says, you will have more quantity of water. There'll be that many more roofs, that many more driveways. If they have a patio, that many more patios. It will not absorb that water. So I don't think any argument can be made that 6 houses versus 9. 9 is going to put off more water with the non-permeable surfaces. I just want to say that. But I've always based my vote, because these residents may not be in my district, but they're in my Mequon. And they don't want to be up here speaking and having to research everything and be here a few nights. I mean, it's been through Planning Commission and here. They've kind of been forced out of their homes because they have a strong opinion. And so I'm treating it as I would as though I was their alderman on this. And they are not comfortable with a PUD development. And we've been very clear, there could be 4 to 6 homes, and they know that. And obviously, they would prefer that. I mean, we don't know better than them. They've seen all the same studies we've seen. They've been watching it probably closer than some of we have on the details. So I have to vote with the residents. I stated that last month, and I'm going to say that again.
Alderman Bouquet.
I find this discussion really very interesting. I've been a member of the Mequon United Methodist Church for better than 40 years. That church was built before most all of the homes that residents are speaking of. We have known from the day we built that church in the 60s that there is no pitch on the west side of that road. Staff has told us that the water drains west and north to the river. I can verify that. The parcel of land that the church has is 10 acres. Every time it rains, we have a very large portion of our property that's wet. In fact, to the west of the church building, we have an area we call the Marsh Meadow. By the way, it has pathways through it. We have little bridges over where the water runs through. It is a natural thing for that area to have wet land. Water rushing through a swale is not anything new. And it's not something, that's not a drainage problem. That is a natural flow of the water in an area that just doesn't have very much pitch. Most of that water ultimately runs north through my district to the river. I'm very familiar with all of that water. Frankly, I think that what concerns me is the possibility that up to 6 homes could be built with no extra effort to contain the water long enough for it to drain off naturally. I mean, it's still going to flow, but with a planned unit development, at the very least, we have, as a city, an opportunity to assure that the water will not flow faster and off that property. That would concern me more than the fact that there is water flow, because there's going to be. And by the way, I can tell you that in all of the years that I've been at that church, despite all of the building that has occurred around us, we have not seen any major increase at all in the water that flows across that church property. So I know that people are concerned when they see water in their yard. I have it in mine. Most of the area east of me drains across my yard too. And I have a swale that is white water when there's heavy rain. It is a natural thing and it goes away ultimately. I support a planned unit development here, if only to assure that there is some effort to keep the water from flowing too fast off those properties.
Alderman Gierl.
I just wanted to address a few things that Alderman Urban said first. One of the people was talking here, and they know pretty much how these wetlands work, and they said that these wetlands, they have the vegetation, and I know this for a fact, vegetation, when those roots do help that soil drain. They do hold that soil together. And when I looked at the scrub brush up here on the picture, the reason that's scrub brush is because mature trees won't grow in a wetland, in a swampland. I see I had the same thing across the street from my house. There's scrubby trees like that. We have, in this property is 10 acres. I went by there too. Rode by there too on a dry day, and there was wet areas in there that I could see from the road. I know the photos, and thanks for the photos, but the rest of the property is a wetlands. 5.5 acres of this 10-acre property, 9,000 square feet, is a wetland. So, looking at these photos, I think that water will be there, a month from now. And I like to, usually when we have these meetings, the first time around, then a lot of people come in to the first meeting, and they address their concerns. I want to apologize to the residents to have to come here for a second meeting like this, to take time out of your lives and exchange days of a day of your life or a few hours of your lives to come here again. You should know, and you do know this property better than anybody else does because you live there, and I understand that, and I respect that. And gravity is what pulls the water. This is gravity, and this area is flat. It's a flat area, and we heard all kinds of different testimony which way, granted maybe in the end it goes northwest, but it goes east, and it goes south, and it goes all over, and it's going to be retained, and when you add impervious surface, it's going to be retained. And my concern is this, Mr. Sabjak. I never said that I talked to anybody from the Army Corps of Engineers. And I didn't say, and you can read the tape, I didn't say that I talked to Kathy Kramitz before this either, but I did say that I believe her and I have known her for 16 years, and I did talk to her this morning.
Point of order, Your Honor. Could you have them address the comments to the chair, which is where comments should be addressed, not to individuals?
Don't pick on the audience, please.
All right, well, I don't lie, okay?
No.
Hey, that's enough. You guys want to talk, go outside.
Okay, the other issue that I have, and I will always have, is that for 5 of the last 9 years, maybe it'll be 6 of the last 9 years, residents in my district get sewage in their basement. And when these toilets are flushed up there, and the sewage is at capacity, they're going to get more sewage in their basement because that's where that sewage is going to go. It's going to join with everything else, and these poor old ladies and the poor old residents in my district will get the sewage. I listened last time around what happened after Sarah Chudnow was built. I believe that it did change the water pattern. I believe that the soil is permanently saturated in this area. I haven't seen a whole lot of change now since I've been an alderman, and I brought this up to attention 2 years ago about fill permits who monitors these fill permits, who takes the topographic maps before. We still don't have anything on that. I respect the current residents and taxpayers, and the way I see this, and I've been in litigation before, and I follow litigation, and I made a comment last time around that if we approve this at the Common Council level, the next step will go to the DNR. Well, they approved it. Well, if the city of Mequon did their, research, then the DNR approves it. And it turns around and the Army Corps of Engineers approves it. And these poor residents buy their lots and they get flooded. So who do they sue? They certainly don't sue the city. Developer certainly has insurance on this. The residents don't have insurance typically. I have all kinds of concerns with this project, and I think it's insane to build properties on a wetland when you have the residents come again and again and again. And these are the people whose homes they are protecting. I didn't see anybody here the second time around supporting the developer besides the developer. The people, this Robert Keepcaver was great. He understands what he's talking about. There is no hydrology studies. There's not a chance in the world I would vote for this project at all. I haven't seen any studies that tell me that it's going to be performed appropriately, and I'm going to vote no, and I'm a little upset that we are reconsidering this. So thank you very much, and I may have more to say later.
Alderman Hawkins.
Let me just speak to a couple of points first. The business of reconsideration. Our ordinance is actually a little looser than Robert's rules. Robert's rules says, you need, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but you need to, if you're going to consider a reconsideration, you need to do it on the night of. But our ordinance allows for a reconsideration at a subsequent meeting. This has only happened a couple of other times in my experience, but I have to support the idea of a reconsideration if an alderman brings that up. I would hope in the future, if I needed to reconsider an ordinance, that I would be granted the same privilege. Second of all, as to the comment about Mr. Alderman Wirth's recusal, he's recused himself many times. In fact, he did it recently, so I have no problem with his decision to continue to consider or reconsider this. I respect his decisions in the past to recuse himself, and I would think that all the my other colleagues would do the same if I were to recuse or not recuse, or if they would recuse or not recuse. So I respect Alderman's decision to actually offer the vote to reconsider, and second of all, to remain involved in tonight's decision. Next thing, the sewer issue. It has been, and Alderman Nervin brought it up, but the sewers, the East Trunk sewer will be worked on. It is being worked on, and whether or not it won't be finished tomorrow, but it will be finished in the near future. So with respect to whatever stormwater gets into the sewer, it's not supposed to get into the sewer, but with respect to whatever stormwater gets into the sewer, that should be addressed. What we're concerned about is drainage and stormwater runoff. And I appreciate the photos that Alderman Nervin took. That's something new that I was hoping one of the issues we might see tonight. I was hoping too that my concern expressed last time around was that we would be seeing the second half of the report entitled the Wetland Delineation Report, paid for by the developers, and we still haven't received that. So I'm very disappointed that that isn't before us in the old packet. It's not in the new packet, and I was hoping under this evening where we are reconsidering, and I voted to reconsider, but doesn't mean I'm going to approve. But I was hoping that there would be new information from the folks who are proposing this project, but I just haven't seen it. And that's very disappointing. I did see the letter from the Department of the Army, and this was dated April 3rd. Would have been good to have it last time around, but that's fine. It doesn't really tell me a whole lot that's new. It is copied to the DNR back, and again, dated April 3rd, but I don't see anything that's substantially new that would change my vote from last time around. Now, all that said, there will be a meeting of Public Works on Thursday, and many of the drainage issues that are facing the city are going to be specifically addressed. And one of the projects is south of this area, and I'm going to be attending that. Even though I'm no longer on the Public Works Committee, I'll be attending that meeting, and I would invite anybody in the community to attend that meeting as well, because we're going to address drainage issues. Our chief engineer tonight at an earlier meeting made a comment that agrees basically with Alderman Bouquet, who was commenting upon the Methodist Church on Oriole Lane, that there never was, the drainage issues were never really addressed when the church was built. And so I would hope that the city can address that whole west side of Oriole Lane, separate and apart from the development, as well as the other drainage issues that are going to be before us. Finally, I know that it may be within the right of the developer to put up the homes without the engineering studies. I just hope they don't go ahead with this. I hope they're a little patient, and not sure they're going to be, but I would hope they would be. So thank you, Your Honor.
Alderman Orth?
Your Honor, I would like to see if we can amend the ordinance that's before us to provide some, excuse me, some greater protections and an opportunity to review. Normally, you go from this step and staff takes it from there and walks through and approves engineering and approves the stormwater management plan. I'd like to see, and I'd like to offer an amendment that after the stormwater management plan is finished, but before it goes to MMSD, that it comes back to this council, and this council has an opportunity to approve it, and that one of the conditions is that the stormwater management plan exceeds the level that's required under the existing ordinances. Not that just that it hits it, but that it exceeds the level of management that's required. I, like Alderman Bouquet, am, absolutely convinced that 9 homes with a stormwater management plan under a PUD is significantly better for the neighborhood, because that's how it's worked in the past other places, than building 6 individual homes that have at best a drainage ditch in front of them. I mean, that's what's allowed by right here. And the point shouldn't be, we ought to be looking at this on how do we make sure that we're doing a better job than what could otherwise be done, and that what's been done in the past. I mean, what's happened in the past has created the problem there. In fact, if this whole street had been done under a PUD to begin with under today's standards, with adequate drainage standards, we wouldn't have a problem here today. Yes, there are wetlands. Yes, there are water in those trees, and there will always be water in that back area because that's the way God made it. And that's okay. Nobody's suggesting that you put a house in that water. But what you want to have is a plan that makes sure that, one, the houses go in the right places, that two, to the extent there's fill, that it's done appropriately, that three, this is part of an overall plan that doesn't exacerbate the problem for the neighborhood. And I want to see it come back here, and here's the protection, because if the developer doesn't do as he's promising, to add to this, but you have to do all the metrics. You have to put in, he's got to do the rest of the plan. I mean, we want the cart before the horse. So yes, it should come back here, and we vote on that at that point to see, did he achieve a standard that exceeds the city's requirements and substantially exceeds. And if he doesn't substantially exceed, we can say no, and he's dead in the water. Now, that's providing some protection for the neighborhood. That's using the creative control that a PUD gives us to deal with the water problem. Other than that, we'll let him go off on his own, build some houses. It's going to be a whole lot cheaper, probably make more money, and the neighborhood's going to have worse water problems. I mean, that's the alternative you have here. So I'd offer that as an amendment, and I'd hope that people would at least vote that amendment in case the underlying ordinance passes.
Second the amendment.
Okay, first of all, we don't have a motion on the floor.
No, there is a motion on the floor. As we talked about, the reconsideration just eliminates the vote. We go back to the motion that was on the floor, which at that point was to approve the development as presented. And so a motion to amend would be appropriate. However, I think the second question is that we need to tighten up what that motion is, because I'm not sure that I could explain it at this point.
Well, I would hope, and I think that staff may have an idea on how to word such an amendment.
I've got an idea. Let's hear staff's idea first. But come back to me if effort's done. See how closely.
Doesn't seem like they have an idea on it, so.
I'm concerned about setting a qualitative requirement or metric to be set without having a full understanding of what the requirements of a stormwater management plan are at this point to determine what a substantial increase would be. Hence, a good requirement for it to come back before Common Council for final approval.
If we word it in a way that says that it's a substantial improvement as determined by the Common Council, you don't need a black and white standard. You have the ability that this body has the legislative right to make that determination. It just has to be, the bottom threshold is it has to be better than what our ordinance requires. And then at that time, the members of this body can determine whether it's sufficiently better.
Alderman Meyer.
In concept, I like the idea of that, but without any quantitative numbers saying X amount is going to increase it by 10% or increase it by 20% or whatever it is, just saying substantially inside it leaves that really open to interpretation a lot.
By us.
And I know that you think that's a good thing. I think that's a bad thing that it's open, and because somebody may think, well, 2% of the whole area, that's substantial. I would think that something else would be a lot larger than that. So I like the idea, but I don't think that it's going to serve its purpose when it comes forward.
Your Honor, my idea.
Okay, your idea.
Could we not craft it on by using the ratio of number of homes that could be built if they did the land divisions? So we're either going to end up with 6 homes or 9 homes. So you'd have to meet base it on some sort of objective number. Would the measure be, we're measuring this off of flow rate. We don't know what that number is yet because the study hasn't been done, but whatever that number is.
Well, you could require that the metrics for the original stormwater management plan be provided. So what is required at a minimum to meet the stormwater management plan, and then have them propose what they would consider to be a substantial exceeding.
Okay.
I would be happy to administer that at the time. I can't, without a stormwater management plan before us, I can't define.
I don't think we have to define X, we just have to define X plus what percentage.
Right.
And I think you're gonna have, if you have 9 homes, you could use, that's 50% more than you would have had otherwise. So if you flip it other way around, it's 33% less. You want to make the drainage 33% greater, or no, less than what it would have otherwise been. So whatever X is in cubic feet per hour, however we measure it, would be 33% lower, then you would effectively get the same amount of flow rate as if you had a PUD with 6 houses or something of that nature, even though we're not proposing that. But I too think the PUD with 9 homes is going to be better for the overall drainage in this area than 6 homes that have no other controls otherwise. So just use the number of homes. Well, I think we do have to define it, otherwise whose definition of substantial is going to win in the end. It's a big unknown. There's no target to shoot for from the beginning.
Alderman Strelcha.
Last night at Planning Commission, we talked a lot about drainage as well. Tonight, we're talking about drainage.
Thursday, we're talking about drainage.
Lumen Christie project, we talked about drainage in the neighborhood. And I've got experience with drainage issues back to my childhood with Mequon and my grandfather's property on Mequon Road. So I'm sensitive to this, and I understand what can happen if the city doesn't do this right. Part of my decision tonight will be coming from the variance from the 6 homes with 6 driveways that the developer has a legal right to build. Part of this discussion tonight, as we need to be aware, is that we're not, although we don't feel, or residents have stated they don't feel any home should go on the property, the developer has a right and a desire and the financial wherewithal to develop 6 homes on this property. There are 6 developable sites. The land is dividable. You have a high probability of getting 6 homes next to you. Listening to my fellow aldermen talk about the stormwater management program, I do feel that 9 homes with an effective stormwater management program can mitigate significant amount of issues on that property. I also feel as an alderman that I struggle with this because the discussion of stormwater comes up as we have areas where we have known drainage issues, whether it's on the east side of the street or the west side of the street. The developer last night that I was chatting with said it's unreasonable for me to fix the entire neighborhood's problems. That's an unreasonable thing for this body to impose on Mr. Zabchak. There's the problems there. If he walks away from this project, you still have your problems. The city can do what the city can do. We want to not exacerbate those problems. We want those problems not to be increased. And if the property with known drainage issues with a water recharge area can improve the water runoff, I think that a significant amount of neighbors would consider maybe that might be a positive solution. You have a site next to you that, you know, basically it has a significant amount of wetlands, and if the development can improve it. So I would be supportive of an improved water management plan. When this came forward tonight, I was hopeful that there would be significant discussion about what the improved plan would be. It's not here. I like Alderman Worth's statement that we should bring this back forward with an improved plan. I agree with the other aldermen that say it should be quantitative. At minimum, if we say even 110% quantitative, The development would benefit the neighboring properties because it would be allowed to keep more water on the property that wouldn't drain off or potentially absorb some of it because there are known wetlands on the property. I'd like to see some city policy come forward where if developers are mitigating wetlands, that they've got to improve on some quantitative level that we can legislate on some of the water runoff, not just break even. I don't think break even is acceptable in this situation. Some of you may think Mr. Zabjak's a quality builder, some of you may not. I have experience with people that have built with him and they've had an exceptional experience. But no developer is perfect, and I will agree with you on that. And we have to do this right, and we have to do something that's going to be quantitative. I would like to see, I will be supporting a motion for an improvement on the property because I think it's the right thing to do in this situation. But again, I don't know that any reasonable person can expect somebody to come in on a property that they own, that they have rights to fix everyone else's property. So I'd like to see some improvement of the water runoff. And I think a PUD with a stormwater management plan versus 6 properties would more effectively do that tonight.
Alderman Adams?
You know, the fact that so many people that are leaning towards supporting this tonight have to go through this kind of discussion to even make it palatable to support, and putting them through hoops that no other developers had to go through, shows me this is not a good fit in this neighborhood, as the neighbors have been trying to tell us. If you choose to go this route, this amendment, and vote tonight, I don't think you can vote tonight. I think to ask them to improve the plan over and above takes staff some time to talk together, to spend some time on this, not just ask them on the fly in 5 minutes, what's the right plan for someone that we've never asked this of before. And we're already talking about ways to do it. Let's base it on 6 houses that he's allowed. I'm not convinced he's allowed 6 houses. I think tonight we said 4 to 6, and the 6th one might take a little looking more at the wetland. I'm not sure it's a written down in ink that there could be 6 houses here right now. So I'd have to be proven the amount if we went that route. And last of all, even if we give staff the, even if we came up with something tonight or another night, to have it come back to council, I would say we give them the parameters and then staff deals with it when the developer comes forth. It's not fair to the developer or the people to have us vote if they have fulfilled the new plan quantitative-wise. I'm not an engineer. Most of us aren't. Who are we qualified enough to say you have met what we asked you to do? We tell staff what, or ask them what to do, and then when they come forth with the plan and say this is what we're doing, staff should have enough guidelines to do that. It shouldn't be brought into the political arena to vote if someone fulfilled. That's never done. We're creating precedent as far as I know.
Staff's idea.
I do need to clarify that we have required this for a property in the past. Lumen Christie was required when they came forward with their parking lot to meet the requirements to accommodate not only the proposed impervious surface as a part of their parking lot addition, but to also address all of their existing pavement. And in a second step, after a stormwater management plan was submitted, we quantitatively dictated what that reduction would be by storm event and by percent.
Can I ask you though, did you have that ahead of time or did we figure that all out at the council meeting?
The requirement at the council meeting was made to address not only the
so we did it at
the
council.
proposed but the existing impervious surface. The quantitative requirement came in a secondary step.
And then when they came forward with their quantitative requirement, did you then judge it as staff or did you bring it to council to vote?
Planning Commission.
It went to Planning Commission.
It did go to Planning Commission. Okay. I just am not comfortable with coming back to council. We are not the people with those qualifications.
So that just backed up my idea to base it off the 6 homes. It's essentially, if you pretended the 6 homes existed, essentially we'd be doing the same thing we did with Lumen Christie.
But just to clarify, the quantitative portion didn't come until after a stormwater management plan was generated. And then we defined by storm event what the additional percentage of reduction would be beyond that was required for the site.
And that was based on area, not a percentage. It was based on the area that you included. That
Well,
you
we had
added
them
area to their storm.
generate the stormwater management plan that would have addressed the additional impervious surface, which was the trigger of the requirement for the stormwater management plan. And then in order to qualitatively address the requirements, we went through by storm event and defined the amount of additional percentage of reduction that they had to have in flow for each of those storm events, because unfortunately the requirements for reduction vary by the storm event. So even a reduction of 33% would vary based upon the 1-year, 10-year, and 100-year storm.
And can I just follow up, because you're answering? Are we absolutely certain, without a doubt, that if he came forward tomorrow with normal zoning, not a PUD, that he can have 6 homes? I thought we were a little gray on the 6th home.
Yeah, there's a portion to the north that could afford them the 6th lot that is excluded from the PUD boundary right now, correct?
Well, the plan that was submitted shows 6 slots, but one of them required a wetland fill. So we don't have the authority to grant that. That would have to be DNR, and that's why I said there's a possibility up to 6, because that 6th lot would require the DNR to approve a fill.
Okay, I just want to say, if we do quantitative, I can't support 6. I could support 5, whatever we know can be built.
Mayor?
Alderman Meyer.
Just a question to the city attorney. Let's just say hypothetically that we do put a percentage on it, and that passes the motion, and then hypothetically we go ahead then and there's enough votes to approve this with subsequent city staff and what they just discussed, the protest vote. Does that subsequent end then, the requirement for that? Or does that carry forward, can that be carried forward to the subsequent vote of the Common Council on the
Approval of the stormwater.
I think that the answer to that is it depends on exactly what the issue before the council is at that particular time. If it is truly a contingent rezoning that effectively requires an additional approval, I think that probably requires still the higher standard, because it's still part of that rezoning. If it is not a contingent aspect, but is just a further requirement, then I would say that you could do just a standard regular majority vote.
Is there a way to make sure that's in the requirement for the next vote?
It sounds like the suggestion, though, is that the PUD approval or the rezoning is based on meeting that additional condition. So if that condition is not met, then the rezoning is null and void.
Well, in Alderman Nurburn's motion, or non-motion yet, but would be to the fact to be brought back to the Common Council for us to approve that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that at that time, does that protest vote, is that still in effect? So that, which I hope it would be.
Well, I'll amend my motion. You may amend my amendment, but that this would be a contingent rezoning based on approval at that council meeting, which qualifies for what council just said, that that's a continuation of the rezoning request, and therefore would require the 6 votes.
And we could do that.
Certainly. And is that I assume that's a friendly amendment, then the second would buy into that. Now, if you want to bring your motion for a more quantitative answer, I don't know how to do
I threw a number out there. I don't know if we agree on it. I'm not sure if staff thinks even that is enforceable.
Again, I think without having any metrics before us of what the stormwater management plan for any base, whether it's the base of 6 or the base of 9, what those requirements are, defining what the further reduction of that is difficult to do.
It's because you only have a concept plan, so you don't know what the square footage of impervious surfaces are yet.
Yeah, I don't have any detail as to what the requirements are for the site.
So could we use the maximum allowable build out of 6 lots or 5?
We could offer the interim step in that the stormwater management plan is developed per current ordinance and standards to define that baseline documentation and have that returned to the council for then the opportunity for staff to build on that and come back to the council to say what we could do above and beyond that was feasible on the property. And then you
define what substantial is quantitatively.
So at least you have the baseline, at least engineering staff can evaluate the baseline plus what would be in addition. And then you would have the opportunity to weigh in on whether that is what you would hope to see.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Bouquet.
I would have the concern raised by Alderman Adams. Are we substituting council judgment for Plan Commission that is more experienced in dealing with these kinds of issues? I think that we should, if we're going to do this, I think it should be determined by staff and go to the Plan Commission. No?
No, that's the only way I'm going to get.
Not if you want a supermajority vote.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what
It's a contingent
I agree
rezoning.
with you on a
It's-
policy basis, but on a political basis, that's not going to work.
Could you, just so I get it right, could you repeat what your amendment is?
Would it be helpful for staff to repeat it so that it gets in the minutes appropriately?
I can say what I have written for him.
You could require that the developer return with the stormwater management plan to meet current ordinance and standards so that you identify what the baseline improvements are. And staff, I think at that point, can then offer up what additional measures could be considered. And then the council has, I guess, the scrutiny of deciding whether that's substantial enough or not. It also gives the developer the opportunity to decide if it's economically feasible.
So the word substantial is going to be?
Yes.
And I guess we're assuming that the developer is going to be willing to go through that process.
That's the amendment. Give a second.
Does everybody understand that amendment?
Yes.
This is on the amendment,
On the amendment.
which also includes the supermajority vote.
Yes.
Okay, call the roll.
Alderman Bouquet?
Aye.
Alderman Meyer?
Aye.
Alderman Worth?
Aye.
Alderman Garrow?
No.
Alderman Hawkins? Alderman Nurbin?
Aye.
Alderman Adams?
No.
Alderman Strelchak?
Aye.
6-2. Okay, so the motion has been amended. Alderman Meyer.
Last time on this, I voted against it, and I had made some statement to the fact that unless there was a substantial change and something that benefited the residents in that area for their situation water-wise. And so there has been some change here for that, and like the idea of that, but it still leaves open the opportunity, since the supermajority will still be inside there, to, if don't like the plans and that for it, and don't see that it's a substantial benefit to the residents that are inside of that area, it can still be turned down. So this time, at this vote, I will vote in favor of it with those amendments.
Any other comments? Alderman Nervin.
I guess I'll make one final comment that the issue really is, on this side of town, we have flat clay soil. And when that's wet, it is by definition its own impervious surface. I have the same problem in my yard. It's really, once the ground is saturated, it's all running off anyway, so I think the PUD is going to address stormwater management better than 6 single-family homes, and that's why I'm going to support it. And I like the amendment to go above and beyond the requirement. I guess we'll see how that plays out over time.
I'd like to call the question.
Alderman Garrell, would you speak?
I just, I'm uncomfortable with this, as you all know, very uncomfortable with it. I would like to have seen maybe DNR approval, or maybe somebody else take the lead on this instead of the city coming without the DNR even making a comment on it yet as to what they think. I think that if we approve it, then, you know, some of the other bodies will probably say, well, they did their homework, so we'll just stamp it off. And then we go back to this old adage, let the buyer beware. I don't think that Mequon should be known as the city of let the buyer beware. I mean, I think that what's going to happen with this, and there's a good chance that's what's going to happen with this, is that we stamp off on it, DNR stamps off on it, Corps of Engineers stamps off on it, there's major problems with it, there's major lawsuits with it, and I've seen this happen before. Well, there's plausible deniability. It's not my fault as a developer that this property is like this. I know the DNR stamped off on it, the city stamped off on it, the Army Corps of Engineers stamped off on it, and the homeowners are stuck. These homeowners are not NIMBYs. These homeowners are not NIMBYs. It's not my backyard. They have real concerns for their properties that I believe the developer is not going to solve at all, and I don't believe the developer is going to help out at all. So I'm definitely going to vote against it, and I don't think this is, I think I would have liked to see other places like the DNR and somebody else take the lead on this. I don't like us taking the lead when we don't have any of the questions answered.
Alderman Adams.
This room is full of neighbors, and it's not just a few. This is the neighborhood, and you have to listen to the neighborhood. And they, like I said, once again, they know what's going on. They understand that there will probably be homes there either way. It's not just a few select neighbors, it's the whole area blanketed. That's why I asked for addresses. And I don't think in my time I've ever seen something pass where it's so clear what that area really wants.
I've seen that dozens of times. Alderman Strelchak.
I empathize with Alderman Garrell's position, and I empathize with what the residents have come forward with. If you've ever dealt with the DNR, if you want to work with a reasonable body and have something go through, if they get it in their mind that it's not going to work, it's not going to work, and there's no talking them into it. I don't really believe in the rubber stamp system of approvals, and the DNR of any governing body is not going to rubber stamp something that they're put in place literally to scrutinize and try to find problems with. That's their job. Unless it meets all of their approvals, it doesn't come through and get approved. What we have before us today is actually the possibility to improve the runoff in the area. The vote is there has to be a quantitative runoff improvement from that site. Allowing for my support on this project, I like to see areas where if we can find an improvement to the site, the residents would, in the long run, actually benefit from it. And I think that we have the system in place, and we have the vote before us in place to require the improvement. Otherwise, it just flat out doesn't go. So I'm leaning towards support at this point.
Can we call the question as soon as Mr. Meyer
Sure.
graces us with his presence?
Sure.
There he is. Excuse me, Alderman Meyer.
Okay.
Hands and all.
Call the roll.
Alderman Meyer,
Yes.
Alderman Worth,
Aye.
Alderman Garrow,
No.
Alderman Hawkins.
Aye.
Alderman Nurbin,
Aye.
Alderman Adams.
No.
Alderman Strelchuk,
Aye.
Alderman Pouquet.
Aye.
6-2, and the motion passes. There's a lot of work to do. Appreciate everybody's time.
Don't we need to have at least a perfunctory vote on the other ordinance that's a companion to it?
Well, that's...
We were dismissing them.
It's the next one.
Yeah.
We move on to ordinance 1467, ordinance amending a planned unit development approval. You guys want to take a break, or do you want to do this right away?
Let's just do it.
Let's do it.
Amending a planned unit development for Sarah Chudnow campus located at 10995 North Market Street, reducing the overall site acreage from 19.4 to 16.9 acres. Tabled by the Planning Commission in February, recommended by the Planning Commission in April, first reading at the Common Council in April, tabled at the Common Council in May.
I move to take it off the table, and then I'm going to move to table it again, but anyhow. I mean,
Do we
we
have a
do need
motion?
to, do we need to table it to get it to move forward, don't we? Don't we need to take it off the table,
We need,
retable it to go with the
we
other
can leave it
ordinance?
on the table.
Yeah.
Can we? It doesn't just die?
Why would we have
Okay,
to?
then just
We
leave it
don't
on the
need to
table.
take it off the table unless there's a positive resolution to
Okay.
first ordinance.
Okay.
That's nuts.
That's a question.
So we'll leave
Or
that
should
on
we
the
have
table.
vote?
And I'm going to ask for a 5-minute
I was
break.
going to vote against it.
That would just be absurd.
5-minute break.
What he said.
Okay.
5 minutes. Oh, he needs the break.
Oh, sure.
Why didn't you just go? We don't need to wait for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
You're in charge.
Yeah, Strelchuk, keep the meeting moving.
Chair
Keep it
while he's
moving.
out of the room.
Strelchuk,
Keep it
go.
moving.
All right.
What?
Next item is ordinance.
You get to be mayor for a couple minutes.
There you go. You got the gavel.
Nothing like being put on the spot. Okay, so we have before us ordinance 2016-1472, an ordinance creating section 2-216(15) of the Mequon Code of Ordinance establishing a paid time off donation policy. Recommendation forthcoming from the Finance and Personnel Committee. This is the first reading.
Point of order.
What did
Keep going.
Go next
It's the
one.
first reading.
It's first reading.
Wait,
Finance
are we doing the
Finance
Sarah
Committee
Chudnow vote?
did vote in favor of this tonight.
Are we doing the Sarah Chudnow vote?
So what happened to the 2016-1467?
That was left on the table.
Wouldn't it just make sense to remove it when we have the vote on the other?
The other one can't happen unless that's approved.
These are companion ordinances, so if we leave it dangling, there's,
1468 was voted on and 1467 was left on the table because it takes one to do the other. Correct?
Correct.
well, we need both to do anything, so by leaving one on the
The
table,
other
haven't
one's
we
still up.
effectively done nothing? Over
The other one's
last-
got a
we
contingent
spent the
approval.
last 2 hours
Excuse me,
talking about nothing.
could I just add a piece of information relative to the question you're talking about? My name is Rob Irwin. I represent the Sarah Chudnow property. And
Excuse me.
I think one of you just stated it very correctly. That ordinance is totally dependent on the Lakeside ordinance going forward. and therefore it makes no sense, and we would request that you not take it off the table until there's a positive
Oh, gotcha.
action on that, because they are related. The downzoning or the reduction in the acreage size of the PUD does not come into being or happen or is necessary unless the other one goes forward fully.
So there's no point.
So there's no point in,
Yeah, you're right.
in
Thank you.
acting on that.
Thank you.
So, okay.
Thank you.
Makes
Thanks,
sense.
Rob.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we agree on that?
Next first reading.
All right. Ordinance 2016-1473, an ordinance repealing Section 14-32 of the Mequon Municipal Code as it relates to economic development grants for reserve Class B liquor licenses. Recommendation, this is the first reading. Mr. Mayor, you're back.
Nice job, Ron.
Yeah, I got to read two.
Nice job.
Thank
Where
you.
where are we?
Resolutions.
Resolutions
No, we didn't do
1474 is
the
what we're on
ordinance.
right now.
Ordinance,
Ordinance, I'm sorry.
1474.
Already read that.
Page 3.
1474, an ordinance amending the City of Mequon zoning map from B1, neighborhood commercial with a planned unit development, to R4, single-family residential, to allow for a single-family home located at 4200 County Line Road. This was recommended by the Planning Commission last night. It is a first reading. Just note how interesting that is that we're rezoning from commercial to residential. It doesn't happen very often.
No.
Yeah.
Which is great.
First time I've seen it.
Resolutions, Resolution 3379, a resolution relating to the City of Mequon's participation in the Home Investment Partnership Program administered by Waukesha County. This was tabled by Public Welfare in May, and a recommendation is forthcoming from Public Welfare.
Mayor, the Public Welfare Committee put forward no recommendation to the Common Council. So there was, our recommendation was no recommendation.
Move to take this from table.
It's not on the table.
Excuse me?
It's not on the table.
No, it was tabled by Public Welfare,
I
so,
see.
so they must have took it off. There
I
were
would
three of
like-
you, there were three of you there, and you didn't have a recommendation.
This is a program I'm familiar with, and in this county, we have a serious need for affordable housing for people. We have homeless individuals, and I would move to support this resolution.
You would move approval?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion, Alderman Meyer?
While there is a serious need for that, I think that what we're told, and Kim can correct me, since the inception of the program, there was 7 individuals that,
No, there's currently 7 loans within
7
the
loans.
city of Mequon.
yeah, 7 loans in the city of Mequon.
4 related to down payment and 3 related to rehab.
This is a program that serves the whole of the county, and if we don't participate, then the county loses. And we have needs for low-income families in this county. When this council spends a great deal more time addressing high-end and hearing from developers doing high-end housing, we can easily forget that there are people who don't meet that high-end income. This is really needed in this county. Whether or not it's needed in Mequon, it is needed in this county. I urge you, please, to support this.
Mayor, would you like me to give an overview of the program?
Would you like an overview of the program? Sure.
Okay, the city has been a participant since 2005. It's a 4-county program that was established in the late 1990s, and it includes Ozaukee, Washington, Jefferson, and Waukesha counties. It's time for our agreement to be renewed, and we do have to take positive action to either support our participation or take action to dissolve our participation in the program. At Public Welfare, it was tabled in May to follow up on some questions about program effectiveness, as well as the impact of municipalities, not only within our county or other counties, and how that relates to the program. Alderman Bouquet indicated that there is an impact to non-participation, particularly as it relates to larger populated municipalities. One of the variables of the program, the basis for the funding, is based on population of the participants within the four-county program. So obviously, the lack of participation by a larger populated municipality in any of the counties would have a reduction, an impact, and a reduction on the number of funds available. In Ozaukee County, there is only one other municipality that is not participating. It's the Village of Belgium. 4 counties wide, there are a total of 5 municipalities that don't participate. However, those are generally smaller in population size. They're generally about 2,500 or less in population. The impact locally would be that any current resident or future resident of the city of Mequon would not be able to take advantage of the program if we choose to not participate. The program offers down payment assistance with loans, homeowner rehab, purchase and rehab loans, as well as housing development. I've talked to a few people who have seen the program work in Ozaukee County. You're seeing the program be effective with rehab. In particular, perhaps you have a older retired couple that is on a fixed income and need a roof repair. There are strong components to the program in terms of homeowner ownership programs. There is strong underwriting to the program. The program sponsors or provides a secondary and independent inspection by a contracted firm for all of the homes and vet out, what the requests are in terms of rehab. So that's, I guess, a general overview. Ozaukee County has received approximately $1 million out of the program, and it is administered by a board, which does have Ozaukee County representation on that board.
And if we were to withdraw, that would reduce the amount of funding available to the county.
To the overall program, to all four counties.
All 4 counties.
Correct.
And this is not a handout, folks. This is a hand up for people who simply have lower incomes, and assists them to maintain their homes, or in the instance of low-income individuals, to purchase homes. I'm baffled why we wouldn't support this.
Alderman Worth.
I think I was the one to move to table this last month at Public Welfare. I think I brought the motion today to send this to the council without a recommendation. I'm very torn about this because I'm really not sure that government should be in the housing business. On the other hand, and I typically don't vote for things simply because it's free money from the state or the federal government. But I've been going back and forth, and I think I am going to support this, because if you're going to have any sort of government housing program, it ought to be a loan program rather than a subsidized housing program. And this program has had an incredible success rate when you're talking about 1% default rates. So I'm torn, because this is not the type of thing I'd normally vote for, but I suppose it's better than lots of the alternatives.
Alderman Nurbin.
It sounds like it's seldom used in Mequon. Only 7 participants in 11 years. So there's
7 currently.
Current, yes.
Current?
So there could have been 20 in the
Oh, okay. Do we know since inception how many have participated?
I don't.
Oh, we don't
I asked that question at the onset. They don't have their data established that way. required quite a bit of legwork on their part to do that for us.
Okay, well, nonetheless, 7 out of how many, 7 or 8,000 homes? So it's not a huge impact, and I don't think it sends a good message about Mequon if we don't participate. You know, it sends the wrong message. Is the big bully Mequon trying to beat up on lower income people? I think it's a good program for some of the reasons stated already. I think we ought to keep our participation in it.
Alderman Adams.
Yeah, thank you, Alderman Bouquet, for, starting out the discussion so positively, and I think you made very good points. And I understand, I agree with John that it's better to do it this way than just handing out money, give people pride with the loan, and it has a great default rate, so I do plan on supporting it.
Alderman Worth.
I would like to make one other comment. When we did our plan, however many years ago, I was very opposed to language in it that talked about encouraging low-income housing. I'm still opposed to that as a goal for the city of Mequon. But under this, the definition of low income is income at 80% of the Mequon average income rate. So this isn't people that were encouraging people to get loans who are making $28,000. These are families who are at 80% of
100 and something.
Yeah, I mean, this is a loan that's available that help, I think, probably a lot of first-time home buyers, and it is done community by community, the 80%, is that correct?
It's done by the county.
Well, even Ozaki County,
But Ozaki
which is
County is,
the highest
yeah.
income county
Yeah.
in the state. So, I don't know that we want to be subsidizing or attracting. I'm not opposed to people who have low incomes. I'm just not sure that we want to be creating programs to bring people to our community that have low incomes. But these aren't really necessarily low income people who this is going to be. They still have to be able to afford the $275,000 home or whatever of most of the entry-level homes are in Mequon.
Okay. Call the roll.
Alderman Worth.
Aye.
Alderman Garrow.
Aye.
Alderman Hawkins.
Aye.
Alderman Nurbin.
Aye.
Alderman Adams.
Aye.
Alderman Stralchuk.
Aye.
Alderman Bouquet.
Aye.
Alderman Meyer.
Aye.
It's unanimous and is adopted. Resolution 3381, resolution approving a transfer of funds within the sanitary sewer capital budget recommended by the Sanitary Utility District in May.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is adopted. Resolution 3382, a resolution approving a transfer of funds from the capital project funds fire vehicle replacement account to the fire officer equipment account. This was recommended by the Finance Personnel Committee this evening.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That resolution is adopted. Resolution 3385, a resolution approving the purchase of a replacement vehicle for the Mequon Fire Chief from Ewald Chevrolet, Oconomowoc, in the amount of $37,740, and the installation of emergency lights and radio package from General Fire in the amount of $10,280, recommended by Public Safety Committee in May.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Alderman Garrow.
Aye.
Alderman Hawkins.
Aye.
Alderman Nurbin.
Aye.
Alderman Adams.
Aye.
Alderman Stralchuk.
Aye.
Alderman Bouquet.
Aye.
Alderman Meyer.
Aye.
Alderman Worth.
Aye.
And that is unanimous, and Resolution 3385 is adopted. Resolution 3387, authorizing the purchase agreement for replacement of police vehicles. Recommendation forthcoming from Public Safety.
That was recommended this evening by the Safety Committee.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Alderman Hawkins.
Aye.
Alderman Nurbin.
Aye.
Alderman Adams.
Aye.
Alderman Stralchuk.
Aye.
Alderman Bouquet.
Aye.
Alderman Meyer.
Aye.
Alderman Worth.
Aye.
Alderman Garrow.
Aye.
That's unanimous, and that is adopted. Resolution 3390, Resolution amending a development agreement for Outpost Natural Foods, 7590 West Mequon Road, for a town center TID incentive, recommended by Economic Development in May and recommended by Finance personnel this evening.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Is there any discussion? Call the roll.
Alderman Urban.
Aye.
Alderman Adams.
Aye.
Alderman Strelchuk.
Financial, you
Aye.
have to call the
Alderman
roll.
Pouquet.
Aye.
Alderman Meyer.
Aye.
Alderman Worth.
Aye.
Alderman Garrell.
Aye.
Alderman Hawkins.
Aye.
Yes, if you want something approved, you put it at the end of the agenda. No specified unfinished business, no petitions, memorials, remonstrances, or communications. Specified miscellaneous new business, mayoral appointments.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion is second to approve. Any discussion?
Can we go through them individually, please?
Excuse me?
Only kidding.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? We are adjourned.